What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Framework. I'm here with a very special guest, really good friend of mine, Dom Prisco. What's going on, Dom? How we doing, man?
What's up? What's up? Thank
Dom and I, yeah, man, dude, I appreciate it. Dom and I connected probably 7 or 8 months ago, give or take. I was
you.
in early phases of a prep. We kind of were bouncing ideas off each other, kind of asking about where we were at, what my goals were. And after my show, moving into my off season, you and I connected again. We had a lot of good conversations. Regardless of where that went from a coaching client perspective. We're boys, and we talk pretty frequently. So thanks for coming on, man. You've been coaching for how long now, and kind of give us a little bit of your background, man.
Yeah, man. I started actually in the reserves. I joined the Army Reserves. I was split off in high school. Obviously, I was always into sports, always athletic. So running, push-ups, like the whole PT test standard thing was just like it was something I was always really good at. So when I got to the unit, there's a lot of being in the reserves, a lot of people that get a little sloppy. And we had a lot of that, people failing PT tests, getting flagged, getting pushed out of the military and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
I started working with a lot of them to help them just get in shape, because a lot of times they had no idea about nutrition, they had no idea how to put a program together. So I started doing that. I really fell in love with it. I started to see a lot of the soldiers in the unit like getting in better shape, losing weight, making tape, removing flags and getting promoted and stuff like that. And it brought a lot more fulfillment than anything else I've ever done. So I knew when I got out that I wanted to kind of pursue this as a career, and I started looking for different schools. I found one down in Boston called American Academy of Personal Training. Toured the school, fell in love with it. Like day one, I was like, dude, sign me up. Like, this is where I need to go, because it was everything. It was the hands-on experience that they teach. They dove deep into kinesiology, biomechanics, anatomy, program design, everything. A little bit about the business side, not too much, not as much as I think they should. Focus on business and sales and all that, but enough where like you're walking away with an education that you can go out to the pretty much any gym and start working with clients and obviously helping them get results right away. So that's kind of my background. I've been doing it for about 12 years now. So
How long have you been coaching competitive clients for this stage?
I would say maybe 7 years, 8 years now.
Now, what do you notice more, like when somebody reaches out to you and says, I want to compete? This is kind of how, we wanted this conversation to go in the first place, So, when people come, they reach out to you, I'm a natural athlete, or, I'm an enhanced athlete. How do you determine, what clients you want to work with? Let's say, I'm a natural athlete. I've been, natural my entire competitive career. If I came to you and I said, hey, I'm running, this, that, and the other, here's my cycle, here's how long I've been using.
Yeah.
Now, is that something where you would say, not really my forte, I don't want to coach you, or is that something that you're open to?
Yeah, I mean, I'm willing to work with the person, but it's like, I was explaining protocols and stuff like that. Definitely not my thing. I'm going to be transparent with them. I'm going to be like, hey, if you're working with someone that's giving you this shit, they're giving you the protocols, the dose, all of that, you're getting regular blood work done and health in check and all of that, that's fine. I'm not going to sit there and bash someone for making that choice. If that's
100%.
They're willing to make, and that's as long as they understand the consequences that come along with doing that and taking that path, that's fine. It's not going to change what I do. So from a nutrition standpoint, from a training standpoint, I'm gonna train that person based off of where they're at, what they need, regardless of what someone's taking. You know what I mean? So I'm definitely transparent about that. I will not touch their doses and stuff like that. But it's also like, I've met someone like you that is natural. I also don't recommend they go down that road. Like, I'm transparent about that. I'm like, dude, if you can be a lifetime natural athlete, do it. Like, there's no need to. You know what I mean? Like,
where I think it stems from a lot is, people oftentimes look at the highest level, right? You can be a complete novice, have never stepped on stage, but you want to look like Chris Bumstead. You are, you're 5'5", you're 230 pounds natural. And you're like, hey, if I jump on gear, I could be the next Phil Heath. And it's just not the case, man. And I think there's this stigma around the NPC and the IFBB. Look, at the end of the day, we're all fans of the sport, right? The IFBB, the Mr. Olympia stage is our Super Bowl, right? So, as you said, we don't discriminate by any means. We still have the same whether you're an enhanced athlete or a natural athlete, we have the same inspirations. We have the same heroes, so to speak, within the sport.
Oh yeah, yep.
But, you're seeing a lot of these novice competitors who are so quick to say, okay, well, before I clean up my diet, before I ever even compete and get on stage, I need to find the right cycle for me. And I feel like that is where, a lot of health issues come into play, a lot of unsuccessful bodybuilders because you screw something up. But
Yep.
it's this stigma around NPC and these enhanced organizations versus competing and getting your feet wet in a natural organization. Do you kind of see that as well?
Yeah, I see it all the time, man. And it's, I think more so now that I think people are open about steroids. Especially I think Rich Piana, there was a few like big name people that kind of started talking about gears and cycles. And I think it can be kind of dangerous because you have an 18-year-old who, has spent zero fucking time in a gym, right? Sorry.
No, dude, please.
Very little time in the gym, doesn't have a foundation built yet, but just wants the instant gratification. They want to look like Chris Bumstead, but they don't realize, like, dude, Chris Bumstead would look, if everyone was natural, he would still look like the best because he's that top 1%. Like, you'll never look like Chris Bumstead. I don't care how much gear you're pushing into your body. You'll look maybe like a better version of you, a bigger version of you, but it's not going to transform your physique into this, this monster of a man, this classic physique king. Like, it's not going to happen. I think that people should definitely get your feet wet before you even ever think about going down that path. Like, your nutrition, your training, everything needs to be dialed in. Otherwise, you're just wasting time and effort, money, and your health on something that you're not going to get the ROI out of because that other shit isn't in order. You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%.
All the ducks have to be in a row, my opinion. So
yeah, man. I mean, I train at 1,000 different gyms here in New Jersey, and I mean, being by the shore and stuff. I mean, any show I've ever competed at, maybe it's an East Coast thing. You're in Massachusetts, right? If I'm not mistaken.
So yeah, I'm in New Hampshire, but business is yeah.
So I mean, all along the East Coast, from my experience, I mean, we have very good athletes, both natural and at the NPC level.
Yep.
You go into any of these gyms, man, and you have these 17 to 25-year-old kids who are 120 pounds soaking wet. Taking their shirts off in between sets, doing all this stuff. And then you find out, like, oh, I'm gonna do classic physique, NPC this show, or I'm gonna do, I want to be a men's physique guy and I'm gonna, travel to DC to do this show. And I'm like, but aren't you a natural athlete? They're like, oh yeah, I'm natural, but I want to compete with the best. I want to be on stage with the best. And I'm like, have you ever gone to a natural show? Like, some of these guys are freaks in nature,
dude. Insane.
And to your point, it's like, if Chris Bumstead didn't take any enhancements, he would still be arguably the best classic physique competitor because he had all the variables were aligned. So do you see, like, there's almost like this stigma with, like, oh, I would never compete in, for example, the OCB. I would never compete in the OCB because the competition is in the NPC. And I want to be able to post my NPC photos on Instagram or my social media platform. Like, nobody knows about the OCB.
Yeah, I see it all the time, dude. And I see it more so now. Like, the competition is growing. OCB is growing, dude. Yeah, OCB is an awesome organization.
I see it firsthand, man.
Yeah, it's an all natural organization. Love OCB. Most of the competitors that we coach are actually, they train for the OCB. They compete there. The physiques that show up, if you were to take the ones that win shows, I could literally take any of the local shows I've been at recently, if I took the top 2, right, top 3 in those classes and brought them to an NPC show, they would do very well. They would probably
100%.
play top 3 too, like, if not win. Because at an amateur level, you're going to have a lot of guys that are on gear in NPC, but you're going to have a lot of natural people too. The OCB is just an even playing field. So if you're natural, you might as well just jump into an all natural organization and don't sit there and sleep on these dudes because they will fucking show up. And dude, they look amazing. Like, we were just at a show recently and or a few of them, but in every single time, the dudes showing up are just on point conditioning, fullness, and they're natural. It's unbelievable. I think the physiques are just getting better and better. And even at a pro level, for a lot of guys it's really like they want to say they competed with the best, but it's like, dude, you're competing in NPC. You're not competing with the best. You're not competing, at the Olympia. I always recommend the OCB. So I love the organization, dude. It's ran so smoothly. Everyone's great. I've never had a single bad experience at any of the shows. People are super awesome. Competitors are awesome. Just awesome community as a whole,
Yeah, I mean, dude, I had done probably 3 or 4 NPC shows, and I was placing 2 out of 2, 4 out of 4, 5 out of 8. And I'm like, oh man, like I'm only going to get better. Like I'm just going to keep getting better.
Yeah.
Well, the competition just got harder because those guys that I was going up against in 2014 have now been on gear for a year and a half, and I'm competing against in 2016. Like I'm not getting beat by guys on the same level of me. I'm getting beat by guys who are continuously enhancing their performance.
Yeah.
Listen, I was getting better too. I don't think in any way, shape, or form I was the same package every time I showed up. But I couldn't compete with these guys who were constant. Like I was going from level 1 to level 2 to level 3. These guys were going to 1 to 4 to 7 to 8. But these athletes that don't know any better are finding these coaches who perhaps only have experience with NPC shows.
Yeah.
Do you think that maybe there's a lack of knowledge behind these natural organizations, that maybe these coaches are even saying like, no, don't compete here. Let's get you on an NPC stage where the lights are brighter, the judges are more this and that. And, you're going to get, we'll have a burger in between the morning show and the night show. Like it's the event itself is more of an experience, where obviously that's asinine, but
the
moral of the story is like, I feel like coaches aren't any better at helping navigate this athlete experience.
Oh, 100%. I think when coaches, like, I mean, some, right, not to bash all coaches. I think a lot of coaches that are, very experienced in this, and they listen, but the nightmare stories that I've heard that we've gotten from, we've gotten clients that jump ship onto our team, and it's like, it's NPC does get pushed on a lot of people, coaches that naturally they tend to, maybe they compete in the NPC, maybe they were not IFBB pro at one point, whatever it might be, they tend to push that and just kind of like overlook a lot of the national organizations as if like, oh, well, it's small competition, small fish, like we're looking for like the bigger, better organization. And I'm just like, for one, you just kind of, not to mention if this is a natural athlete, you kind of ruining their experience as a whole, because for one, OCB, other natural organizations, it's an even playing field. So they're going to do better, right? At the end of the day, we're all brothers of iron. We're all here to just be healthier, have fun with this shit. And from a competing standpoint, like, dude, you can't remove that from it, right? If competing's not fun, that's when people end up throwing the towel and they stop, right?
Yeah.
So, finding the organization, I think that fits each athlete is important. You know what I mean? So if someone is natural, I definitely tend to push the natural organizations on them. If someone's not natural, then I'm not going to say, try to beat the lie detector test, dude. You got to go NPC. It's as simple as that.
Yeah,
but,
it really is, man. It really is. Like to your point, like, you hear all the time, like these OCB shows are super open about it. Like they'll put athletes on blast on their social media accounts. Like, 3 failed drug tests at the New Jersey Classic. I'm like, damn, like
happens all the time, dude. Yeah.
Yeah. And until I started, following more and more of these, because they're all individually run. So like, you'll have like OCB Jersey, OCB Midwest, OCB Colorado. So, I start, stumbling across these OCB platforms, and they're all the same in the sense of like, they'll let hey, we caught people testing and they've been eliminated. Now, granted, you could compete in that show. Like, let's be honest. Compete in that show, you could take 5th place. The guys who took 1st and 2nd could piss hot. Doesn't mean you were 3rd. You were still 5th place that day. They're not going to mail you a new trophy. You got to take that stuff on the chin, man. Like, I competed against freaks in the OCB. Like standing backstage, and I know it's not about this, but from the athlete perspective, and you're a coach, so I know you've seen it 100 times. You're backstage and you're kind of looking over your shoulder at this guy, like, or you see the guy, walking in the tracksuit, and you're like, fuck, I hope he doesn't have a classic physique, classic physique trunks underneath that, because that guy is fucking massive. And then of course he does, right? So when I made the transition from NPC to OCB, I had that, oh man, I'm gonna go in, I'm gonna mop the fucking floor with these dudes, and then I'll move to NPC. Because once I can win, I'll move to NPC. Now, dude, I cannot crack the top 4. Like 3 OCB shows, 4th place, each show in open, of course. I mean, I've done, other divisions, but 4th place kind of across the board. Now I'm like, fuck, dude, like at least I know now that I can hang with these guys. Like I belong to your point. I belong on this stage. I'm a classic physique competitor through and through now. I know that I have the physique that I can build on. I'm not a bodybuilder. I don't have the tiniest waist. I'm not a men's physique guy. So I've narrowed that down. And as a coach, I'm sure you kind of go through that battle too of some guys like, oh, I'm 115 pounds. I want to be a bodybuilder.
Yeah. We got to be realistic. At the end of the day, like I'm not trying to hurt someone's feelings, but we see with bikini competitors want to do wellness. It's like, if you don't have you got to look at the division. What does the physique look like? Which physique is the most attainable for you?
Yeah.
And then be real with it. You know what I mean? That's not you can't ever try, but I'm just, the likelihood of you succeeding, same thing with me. Like as a bodybuilder, right? My frame, I'm like, dude, I don't have the frame for this shit.
Yeah.
Right? Could I do physique? Yeah, I could do physique because I have more of that look, there's certain things you can change about your physique. There's certain things you can't. Like I can't just completely change my structure.
Dude, that's really it. Structure is what will fuck you. Is you have to just basically be like, hey, if I'm tall and I have a tiny waist, I can hang with the physique guys. And that's not to say, and you as a coach, the more you work with somebody, hey, you start in men's physique. What's to say in 2 years' time we can't move you to classic? We take our off seasons, we grow your legs, we thicken up the back. Stuff like that.
More,
I
think it's easier. In my opinion, it's easier in like divisions like the OCB and stuff like that. Where I think they're a little similar, right? Each division, like you've seen shows. You go to like to your point earlier, it's like you'll have dudes that have been training for a year, and they're going to go up, they're going to show up, they're going to compete in classic physique, and it's like. They look more, maybe they would have done better in men's physique because they're much smaller frame and stuff like that.
Politely, you're saying they're going to get dusted.
Pretty much. But the division, I think, a little bit closer, where obviously when you start adding gear, obviously the performance enhancing stuff, it's going to change the physique more drastically, right? So bodybuilders look a lot different than a classic physique competitor in the IFBB. Looks a lot different. Well, actually, we'll see what happens with the IFBB. They're creating the weight caps now for physique competitors because we're starting to see a lot of these physique dudes just with such crazy amounts of muscularity that it's like they are starting to kind of cross that gray line of like, are they classic? Should they be in classic? They could size up a little bit or just literally step on stage as a classic physique competitor. So I think there's typically like a bigger range though of physiques. It's harder for them to just kind of like swap back and forth, in my opinion, in the IFBB than the OCB. But I think it is very important to find the division that your physique most best represents, right, and resembles, and then kind of focus on that, train for that. But if you are a physique competitor, you've been training, you're seasoned, right? You've been showing up, you've been doing some competitions, and you want to add some more size to your frame and try, going into classic physique, and you have the structure for it, you like the posing, then go for it. I've seen it happen all the time, and I think especially people that have the legs for it, it's usually the biggest thing right there is like the leg development, right? Do they have the legs for it? Because I know a lot of physique guys, not all of them, but some physique guys just primarily focus on their upper body. They're not spending enough time on their lower body because like, well, it's hidden, right? So I think as long as you get the wheels for it and you want to put, a nice improvement season in and add some size and some thickness, some fullness, bring the conditioning in a little bit more, you can step on stage as a classic guy too. So
yeah, you said it, man. I mean, I think women's bikini is probably the only division that I can see a natural female doing both. You can compete in OCB, you can compete in NPC, and pretty much hang. 9 times out of 10, and I've done a few episodes on this, determining, the right division for you is they tend to be a little on the taller side. naturally they're very thin. They don't have,
Yep.
you know, a lot of assets and features, you know,
Yep.
breast augmentation, it is what it is. I mean, that's across the board in most female divisions. So that won't necessarily hold you back from any divisions, obviously. But like you said, once you get into where the divisions where size matters,
Yep.
you can't fake that.
Yep.
You know, OCB, like you said, you can compete in men's bodybuilding, and maybe you could have hung in classic. Maybe you didn't have the waist for men's physique. In NPC, your bodybuilders are 5'5", 225 pounds. Your classic physique guys are 6 feet tall, 215 pounds. Your men's physique guys are between 5'10" and 6'3", and they're 190 pounds. Like, that's just it. Like, if you don't fit those categories, it's going to be very tough for you to stand there and hang with those guys, in my opinion.
Yeah, the physiques are definitely start to take on a different appearance.
The structure, I mean, the structure,
Oh, yeah,
it's
it's
the moral
entirely, yeah. And again, it's because they're on gear, because they have a little bit more control over like muscular development, right? Someone who's on gear can develop their shoulders and create more roundness and fullness than a natural athlete. You're going to see more of that in the physique division, right? You're going to see guys smaller arms but bigger shoulders to kind of make them pop a little bit more. You know, they're specifically not looking for massive arms. So people got to build that physique, right? And that's why it looks so drastically different than like a classic physique competitor in those organizations. But funny thing is with the bikini, right? What we're noticing through these organizations like NPC as well as OCB, that lately, I feel like the past year or two, they're starting to push the conditioning a little bit more.
Really?
So if you look at the women that are winning, right? I had a competitor that brought in a little too conditioned. That was our feedback. Her very first comp, we brought her in. She's like 51 years old. Competed as a master's, 50 plus, and all that. She did amazing. Showed up on point. Conditioning level she was very lean, probably like just under 12% body comp, but she wears it well. Like she's just very vascular and all that. And that was the feedback we got, was like, hey, conditioning was she came in a little too lean, a little too hard looking, soften her up a little bit. I think she took second. And now the last comp I was just at, I'm watching these physiques, and the top three, they're coming in leaner and leaner, and they're starting to, you know, reward them. So I think that we're starting to see a little bit more of that tightness, a little bit more of the conditioning appear in the bikini division, where, you know, looking at, you know, obviously the IFBB, once you get to that, you know, that national level, right? NPC, that national level, I would honestly say the majority of even bikini competitors are going to be on some sort of gear.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Even that, you know, that's just this, you know, it's probably the only division where you'll ever find a natural athlete. There's probably been maybe a handful of physique guys that I think have made it to the IFBB earlier on, right? It's getting harder and harder.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? It's definitely getting harder and harder because gears, you know, changing the physiques more and more every year. But so it's less common. But I would say, like, even bikini, it's hard to find a natural bikini competitor in the IFBB, you know,
Yeah,
or even at the national level.
Once you step on stage at like the USA's, I mean, they're 95% of them are going to be on gear, and the ones who aren't are going to get dusted. You know, it's just how it works. So, I mean, as we wrap this up, man, my last question for you.
Yeah.
Whether they're a novice competitor, you know, if there's somebody in my shoes who've been competing for, you know, close to 15 or close to 10 years now, you know, somebody who's been training for 15 years, whatever their level of, you know, knowledge of the sport is, and they come to you as a natural athlete and say, I want to compete. Where do I do it? You know, what's some advice that you would give to a young competitor or a new athlete looking to get on stage who's not enhanced, and, you know, is doing it for the love of the sport?
Yeah, I would definitely recommend that looking at natural organizations. Like I said, it's an even playing field. You know, the physiques are not physiques you want to sleep on, especially from you know, if you're natural, like they're gonna show up, they're gonna work their ass off to get where they're gonna be. So, you know, for that reason, it's not like it's gonna be a walk in the park. But yeah, I would definitely push them into that direction. You know, staying away from the NPC and stuff like that. I know some want to go that route, but I prefer to stay with the natural side of things, and I prefer to kind of push them into the OCB or another natural organization. There's plenty of them too, and they're growing. There's so many of them now. Before it was like, oh, well, there's not a whole lot. NPCs everywhere. Well, now OCBs everywhere. Literally the entire East Coast. Even we're starting to see them, more and more on the West Coast as well too. So plenty of shows to kind of hit up and stuff like that. So I would recommend that they see their full genetic max, reach that full potential, because you can do amazing things with the body from a natural standpoint that later on in life you'll be thanking yourself for, obviously not just jumping the gun too soon and jumping on gear when you didn't need to.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more. Like when you're getting into nail it. Make sure that you do that 16 to 18 to 20 week prep. You nail every variable. You're in your absolute best condition you can be. You've done everything right for multiple shows. Don't just do one and then be prepared to make that jump. Like, spend time being the best athlete you can be, and then make that decision of, okay, to my point, until you're smoking the competition at every show you go to, that's the competition you need to face every time.
Yeah.
Because if you're not getting better, it's not going to get easier elsewhere. It's the definition of it's only going to get harder.
Yeah.
All right, Dom. Hey man, I know you got to run. Thank you so much for doing this, brother. We'll obviously be in touch. Just go ahead and plug where people can find you, where they can reach out to you on Instagram.
Yeah. You guys can look me up, right, at Dom Prisco. I got at Fitness Within Studio as well. That's the brick and mortar studio. Team Triforge is our online coaching. We don't have a IG for that. I do most of it through my personal account, but Team Triforge is where we work with clients, obviously both online for competing. So wherever you're at in the United States, we can work with you. So if you are interested in competing, whether you're natural or not, right? If you are interested in competing, you can always reach out to us, and we can see if things are a good fit.
All right, Dom. Thanks, brother. We'll be in touch. Hopefully we can do this again. You and I have a ton of topics that we could definitely, go back and forth on. So
always a pleasure, man.
Yeah, brother. And everybody else, thanks for stopping by the framework.
All right, peace.